What does it say about the state of American democracy when the Attorney General of the United States is asked a simple yes or no question and can't say yes? That's not a trick question. That's not partisan spin. That's exactly what happened at a House Judiciary Committee hearing on February 11, 2026. And what followed wasn't just awkward. It was revealing. When Pam Bondi was asked whether Donald Trump is honest, she didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She said he's the commander-in-chief. That wasn't the question. And if you're watching this thinking, why does that matter? Stay with me, because what wasn't said in that hearing might be more important than what was. The question came from Representative Sidney Kleiger, Dove of California. She had 5 minutes. And she used every single second to do something that apparently no one else in that room was willing to do. Ask the nation's top law enforcement officer whether the President of the United States is honest. What followed was one of the most telling exchanges of the year. Not because of fireworks. Not because of shouting. But because of the dodge. A full-scale dodge.
Yields back. We turn to the good lady from California, Congresswoman Kamlager Dove.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Attorney General, for being here today. I want to talk with you about an issue on which there is broad bipartisan agreement: the importance of ensuring trust between the American public and those government officials who wield powerful law enforcement responsibilities. So, Attorney General, would you agree that it is important for law enforcement leaders to be honest?
Of course, as well as members of Congress.
Thank you. And would you include yourself as a law enforcement leader?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. You know, President Trump has also, he has referred to himself as the chief law enforcement officer of this country. So do you believe that President Trump is honest?
He is the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, and
not
only is he keeping this country safe, he is keeping this world safe.
It's a simple question which you didn't answer.
He is the commander-in-chief.
Last June, Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman, her husband Mark, and their dog were brutally murdered in their home. And your USA's office in Minnesota investigated this crime and obtained a 6-count indictment of the murder suspect, stating that he had intent to kill, injury, harass, and intimidate Minnesota legislators. And I have the copy right here. I read through it. Yet a few weeks ago, President Trump suggested publicly that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was behind these murders, posting on his TruthSocial account a video raising this conspiracy theory. And it wasn't true. And you know it wasn't true, or else you would not have brought an indictment against the subject. Do you know what else Trump has said? He has said he has cut gas prices by 1,400%. False. That he won the 2020 election.
Actually, gas is down to $1.99 a gallon, thanks to President Trump.
That he didn't know Epstein.
Maybe $5 in California.
It's my time, Mr. Chair. That he sent water to LA during the wildfires. False. That Governor Westmore of Maryland called him the greatest president of his lifetime. False. So many tales, too many to keep up. But I want to go back to what he said about Tim Walz. Do you agree that President Trump undermined public trust in law enforcement by suggesting that Governor Walz was involved in the Hortman murders?
I am not familiar with that statement.
Well, that is a disappointing response, and it is also why your office and Donald Trump have zero credibility, because I know, and you know, it was a right-wing extremist who murdered the Hortmans. And you and the president are being dishonest with the American people. Last fall, after the horrific shooting of Charlie Kirk, President Trump was asked if there were extremists on both the left and the right. And his exact words were, "I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. The radicals on the left are the problem, and they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy." Do you agree with this statement? You're taking too long, Madam Attorney General. But you know the answer, because your own department has addressed the question. In 24, the DOJ's research arm issued a report on domestic terrorism, stating that the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violence extremists. The DOJ published the report, and after the president made those comments, the DOJ took the report down. And I sent you a letter asking you a simple question. Why did the Justice Department remove the data that shows right-wing extremists have killed more innocent people than left-wing extremists?
Did you refer to immigration enforcement as domestic terrorism?
You should answer my question.
Yes.
You're on my time, but you won't. And what I am asking you to do is put the report back. Restore the data. Stop scrubbing important data from your website. Stop taking down reports that you know the American people need to know about. There are violent, dangerous people out here with real threats, and the dishonesty from your agency comes from the covering up of these threats that could hurt American people and put our lives at rest. Do better. And with that, I yield back, Mr. Chair.
And to understand why that dodge matters, you have to understand the case at the center of it all, the deadly attack on former Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband. In June of 2025, a man named Vance Bolter showed up at their home in the early morning hours posing as a law enforcement officer. Tactical gear. Fake badge. A realistic silicone mask meant to disguise his face. He murdered them. Earlier that same night, prosecutors say he critically injured State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette. The family's dog, Gilbert, was gravely injured and did not survive. It was a brutal, calculated attack. But here's where it gets even more disturbing. When authorities captured Bolter, after what was described as the largest manhunt in Minnesota history, they found notebooks in his car. Inside those notebooks, a target list of 45 elected officials. All Democrats. Along with 5 firearms and a massive stockpile of ammunition. Friends described Bolter as an evangelical Christian with politically conservative views. At a press conference, the lead federal prosecutor, Joe Thompson, said Bolter had left a letter to the FBI full of what he called delusional claims, including an allegation that Governor Tim Walz had ordered the attacks. Prosecutors said the letter was designed to mislead investigators. Delusional. That was the word used. Now here's the twist that sent shockwaves through that Judiciary Committee hearing. On January 3rd of this year, the President of the United States shared a video on TruthSocial spreading that exact false allegation, the one his own federal prosecutor called delusional. He amplified it anyway. And the Hortman children, Colin and Sophie, publicly begged him to take it down. Sophie said that sharing the video was another hurdle our family must overcome in grieving the loss of my parents. Even Pat Garofalo, a former Republican leader in the Minnesota House, condemned it as absolutely disgusting behavior that hurts surviving families a second time. People from both parties condemned it. The Post stayed up. Now let's talk about the report that was at the center of Representative Dove's questioning. The study discussed in that hearing was published by the DOJ's own research arm, the National Institute of Justice. According to reporting confirmed by NPR, 404 Media, and The Hill, the data showed this. Since 1990, individuals on the far right committed 227 politically motivated attacks resulting in more than 520 deaths. In that same period, those on the far left committed 42 attacks resulting in 78 deaths. Those aren't talking points. Those are DOJ numbers. And here's what happened next. As recently as September 11, 2025, that study was still on the DOJ website. A cached version proves it. By September 12, 2 days after the targeted killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, the study was gone. The DOJ would not explain why. In its place, a message saying the website was under review in response to presidential directives. Representative Dove later wrote a letter demanding the report be restored. The strategy isn't complicated. The president wants to label the radical left as the primary source of political violence. His own department's research contradicts that narrative. So the research disappears. Imagine getting a bad grade on a test and solving the problem by burning the test. And during that same hearing, the Attorney General claimed gas prices were down to $1.99 a gallon. AAA's national average was $2.92. This isn't just about one statistic. It's about credibility. It's about whether the Department of Justice is pursuing facts or protecting narratives. According to reporting from CNN, Bondi came loaded for bear, and appeared to be playing to an audience of one, the president. The Intercept reported that during the same testimony, she confirmed for the first time the existence of an undisclosed watch list created under a Trump executive directive called NSPM 7. When Representative Mary Gay Scanlon asked who or what is on that list, Bondi refused to say, except to confirm that Antifa is on it. So let's pause. We have an attorney general who won't share political violence data her department already published, who won't disclose who's on a federal watch list, who won't say whether the president is honest, who deflects when asked about false claims amplified by the president that were rejected by her own prosecutors. At what point does "I'm not familiar" stop sounding like caution and start sounding like complicity? And the double standard didn't stop there. Critics pointed out that the president did not order flags lowered for Melissa Hortman after her killing, but ordered them to half-staff within hours for Charlie Kirk. Supporters say those decisions are situational. Critics say the contrast speaks volumes. So here's the bigger question for you watching this: if the Department of Justice deletes its own research because it conflicts with a political narrative, what does that mean for the next report? The next threat assessment? The next crisis? If the chief law enforcement officer of the most powerful country on earth cannot answer a direct question about presidential honesty, what does that signal to allies? To adversaries? To the American public? Is this about protecting national security? Or protecting political messaging? And remember, the DOJ's report on political violence is still gone from the website. The president's debunked post about Governor Walz remains up, according to reporting. Vance Bolter has pleaded not guilty. His next court date is set for March 6, 2026. This isn't about one viral clip. It's not about one heated exchange in a committee room. It's about whether the institutions designed to uphold truth and justice are operating independently, or orbiting around one individual. Because when an attorney general can't say yes to "is the president honest," and instead pivots to "he's the commander-in-chief," that's not word association. That's strategy. And maybe the most important question isn't what she believes. It's what she knows. If you found this breakdown helpful, if you care about transparency in government, political violence statistics, DOJ accountability, and what's happening inside the House Judiciary Committee in 2026, hit the like button so more people see it. YouTube's algorithm pushes conversations that people engage with. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think deleting the DOJ study was justified? Do you believe the Attorney General should have answered directly? What does accountability look like to you? Share this video with someone who needs the full context, not just a 10-second clip. And click subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into the stories shaping American politics right now. Because in moments like this, the question isn't partisan. It's foundational. And the answer, or lack of one, tells you everything.